Hey my beautiful bitches, it's me, Fiona St. James, and welcome to another episode of Fiona's Coffee Talks. And as always, I'd like to start off every day with a fresh, hot, black cup of coffee. Hold the cream! I'd love to. And today's episode is, drumroll please, 4th of July, Independence Day, and my all-time favorite 4th of July story. Picture it. Fire Island, 1985. I was a mere fetus. I was only 20 years old, but let me give you a little back history to that. You know, being born and raised in the Bronx, even though I knew I was gay my whole life, there was not a real outlet for me in terms of experiencing men, frankly. And so I was a bit of a late bloomer. Like, you know, I didn't kiss a man for the first time until I was 17. So between 17 and 20, excuse me, I had, some fun, some share of, I did stuff, but not a lot. Like my experience was very limited. And at that point, like everyone that I had been with, I knew, or at least knew a little bit. So let me just give you that first. So picture it, 1985. I had heard of Fire Island, but I had never ever been there. So a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, you should go, it's great. And so of course I didn't have a car or anything. So he was like, you got to take the train to then a van, to then a ferry, and like eventually you'll get there. So I was still living at home and I had friends that lived in Long Island. So I basically lied to my parents and I was like, oh, 4th of July, I'm going to go to Long Island for the weekend, which wasn't really a lie, but I just didn't say I was going to Fire Island. I said I was going to go stay with friends. So here I am, 20 years old, not really knowing where I was going. I mean, I knew how to get there, but I'd never done the trip before. I had a knapsack, $75 in my pocket, and basically nowhere to go. I mean, nowhere to sleep. So, you know, I was being pretty adventurous and I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. How bad could it be? You know, when you're 20 years old, you do shit like that. At this age, I don't know if I could ever go away for a 4-day weekend and just kind of, wing it and be like, I don't know where I'm gonna sleep, but I'll figure it out. So I went through all of that, and that precise moment when I got off the boat, the ferry, I should say, I immediately felt like I was in heaven. I was like, oh my God, where has this been my whole life? And I remember that precise moment of like walking down the boardwalk, and I went to Cherry Grove. So when you get off the boat, when you go on the boardwalk, if you just take that straight path, you end up hitting the beach. So I'm walking and I kind of felt like I was like floating. I couldn't even like feel the ground. I remember that moment was so euphoric and I was like, oh my God. So like, I was at the beach all day and just in heaven. I was like a pig in shit. So it was about 6 o'clock that evening. I was still on the beach and I had met a couple of people, but like, so then this hot man is walking by and we like looked at each other and smiled. So he said hello, I greeted him back and I had my blankets. I was like, oh, you want to join me? So of course he like sat on my blanket and then like immediately started making out with me. And I was like, whoa. Now you have to admit, like I have to admit I was so naive that was the first time. I was 20 years old and it was the first time that I actually had just met someone and like just made out with them, a complete stranger. Like I had been to a couple of clubs beforehand, but like not a lot, and that had never happened. So we proceeded to like, spend like the next 5 hours together kissing and, took me out to dinner, we went dancing, and so I was having this grand old time. Now he was just there for the day, not spending the weekend, and I remember it was a Thursday, so I was there Thursday through Sunday, and we had a grand old time, and then suddenly, at like 11 o'clock at night, he announced, okay, well, I'm gonna take the next ferry out of here. And he must have seen like the look on my face, because my reaction when he said that, I was sort of like, whoa, wait, what? Like we just spent 5 hours together and then suddenly you're just gonna leave. Which, that's where the naive part comes into play, because I had never done that. I hate to admit it, I mean, I wasn't that young at that point, 20's not a child, but it was, like I said before, anyone else that I had been intimate with or even just kissed was someone that I at least knew for a little while, but that was not the case with him. So when he saw my expression, excuse me, he immediately said, he was like, don't worry about it. He hugged me, and then he was like, oh, don't worry about it. You're in Fire Island. You'll be fine. And there was a precise moment, excuse me, at that precise moment, suddenly like this switch went off in my head, and I went from like being this naive little boy that was like, how could you leave me, to suddenly he said that and like walked onto the ferry, and I immediately turned around, and I was like, you know what? He's absolutely right. And I strutted back to the Ice Palace and had an amazing weekend, let's put it that way. And that was the start of like that weekend, I had my fun. And of course it was like with guys that I didn't know, but I had never even done that. So like, talk about independence. It was Independence Day weekend, and it was my own independence because I had this preconceived notion of like, you're just supposed to be with people that like, or, not strangers. And obviously, let's all keep it real here. I hook up, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who does. So how many times have we just like met someone and immediately started kissing them, or, one night stands, you don't know them, and half the time you don't see them again. So that's what ended up happening there with him. I did have a great weekend. That first night, I didn't meet anyone else. I remember I was up till the bar closed, and then went to Michael's, and I was eating breakfast, so I was all sleep deprived. And then the next day I did actually meet someone who I spent the weekend with and had fun on the side as well. So anyway, guys, that's my favorite 4th of July. And I mean, I've had a lot of wonderful 4th of Julys. And funny part was, starting that weekend, then pretty much every weekend, every summer from like 85 till about 2002, I was at Fire Island. That's also where I started doing drag. I've done so much this. So Fire Island has always been so near and dear to me. And, for lots of reasons, but this particular reason stands out because it really was my introduction to it's okay to like meet people and like have fun. Pick up strangers, as it were. Like, you don't have to necessarily know them to do stuff with them. So anyway, can any of my viewers relate? I'm sure I'm not the only one who's done this. Honey, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's going to do it again. But that was my story. Leave your comments. Love Fire Island. Don't really go there that often anymore, but it will always have a special place in my heart. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what I have to say, give me a thumbs up, and have an amazing weekend. Alrighty, guys. Love you. Bye.